Welcome, Raiders. How's it going? My name is Ryan. Today marks episode 28, where we are going to talk Hunters and Monk. It is the very last episode. Well, not quite the last episode, but the last class episode where we are concluding our Battle for a Main series. Without further ado, tanks, everyone's ready. Pull timer on you.
The heroes have made it to the glorious finale.
Alright, here we go, guys. Set up your chairs, focus up, let's do this. Alright, guys, get buffed up.
Okay, so we want to soak the annihilations,
Get your shit together.
then we want to target the annihilator,
Put them big girl panties on.
move back to avoid damage from eradication,
I think I've disconnected.
then we target the decimator,
Can we pull already?
then we target boss.
I hope you can swim in molten lava.
Let's kill this dragon.
Welcome back, Raiders. As I've already said, my name is Ryan, and you're listening to the Raiders Confessional podcast, where we listen to all things PvE in-game content-wise in the world of Azeroth. Joining me, as always, back together again, Marty from the land of Denmark and Oreo from the land of Canada. Marty, how are you today?
I am pretty good. Did I unmute myself? I unmuted myself. Yeah, I'm pretty good. Yeah, this is the second podcast of the day, and I think I have another one after this. So it's podcast Sunday.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a good day.
It is indeed. Oreo, how's it going, my man?
Pretty good. It's another week down.
Yeah. You seem a little sluggish there, man. You nursing some hard feelings there, or what's going on?
Yeah, it's been a hard week. I went to a big rodeo yesterday and drank a few too many.
Well, how many is too many? Is there such a thing as too many if you didn't die?
I feel like
So yeah, guys are here. The whole gang's here. All three of us back together again. I want to welcome both guys back. I know we had some weird scheduling the last 2 weeks. We got through it, and we are all together again for the last episode. But we are talking classes. This week, we are going to conclude with the Monk and the Hunter. However, on this episode, be warned, we will not reveal what our mains will be. We will do that in the next episode, along with
I'm
some
out
other
of here.
announcements. Yep, Marty's out.
I'm out of it.
See ya! But yeah, today we're going to conclude with the Hunter and Monk, and then next week we will reveal what our mains will be. That being said, I'd like to open the table up now to a little discussion about what we've all been up to. Marty, I know you already kind of mentioned that you potentially, and I guess the cat's out of the bag, but you and I both have another project that we will be working on today later, and it will be announced at an even later date. But other than that, what have you been up to lately, my man?
I have been playing. I found out that I have a nerdy girlfriend. I don't know why I didn't discover that earlier, but apparently,
You let her move in before you knew that?
Yeah. Yes. But anyway, we were, first of all, we started out by going to the local mall on Friday afternoon because we needed to get a few stuff, and also because there is a lot of Pokestops out there, raids and stuff, because we played Pokemon Go together. And after 1.5 hours, I was ready to go home, and that's when she said, "Let's pop one of the lucky eggs," and they had, because they buffed the XP you get, so we had to stay there for another hour just to get through all that and evolving stuff and catching Pokemon. So yeah, we spent 2.5 hours in a mall. We didn't really need to buy too much, so it's mainly just been playing Pokemon Go out there. And then when we left, she was like, "Oh wait, it's Friday today, isn't it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's Friday." And she's like, "Then it's Saturday tomorrow, and then we can sleep in." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's true. Well, then we can play PlayStation when we get home. Do you want to play Diablo 3?" You know? And I was like, "Okay, sure, I'm up for that." So we jumped in front of the PlayStation and played Diablo 3 all night.
Hey, Marty,
So yeah.
if you haven't already, you need to put my wedding invitation in the mail.
Yeah, I think I realized on Friday that, yeah, she's a keeper, right?
Yeah, I'd say so. My girlfriend's out spending money right now, and yours is playing video games. I think I'm doing this wrong.
Yeah. I haven't actually played too much Blizzard besides testing out some things in BFA. Played a little bit of Diablo, and then we have been Pokemon going pretty much. But it's nice being outside. It's sunny. It's warm here at the moment, so it's the right time to do it, I guess.
Sure. Oreo, what about you, man? What have you been up to? Other than drinking yourself to death.
Yeah. Kind of busy with work lately, but I mean, we've also been recruiting up a storm still. We've trying to solidify our roster going into the next expansion.
Yeah.
That's taking a lot of work.
How's it going?
It's good, man. We actually have more people than we know what to do with currently. So we were working on kind of sorting through some people had, signed up, and then we haven't heard from them since. So we're just kind of going through and cleaning out the cobwebs, so to speak. But, Oreo and Silk, who's currently in chat, they've been doing a good job, and yeah, things are looking up. Hopefully we'll be starting off on a strong foot going into BFA.
That's cool. Are you guys doing anything now, like pre-expansion, or you're just trying to, just get ready? Or
we've been doing, one, if not two raids a week just for fun. Nothing super serious. We usually start with normal on Tuesday. I think last week I was gone. They did heroic on Tuesday, some of it. But nothing mandatory. We are doing a heroic Argus kill tonight for those that still need the achievement and mount. I know Dusty is probably tagging along. Cole, one of the past TRC hosts, he's planning on tagging along. So it should be fun. But as for myself, I had a weird realization while the intro was going on. I recently lost a very nice pair of sunglasses that I have. As you guys can all see per the reflection of my fourth set of eyes here. My eyes are not the greatest, but I cannot go outside without my sunglasses, and I have not been able to find them for the life of me. And those are usually things that I keep very good track of, and I found them today while I was taking a shower. They were buried underneath my girlfriend's blow dryer. How they got up there, I do not know, but I just realized that my Apple Watch is now in my toothpaste drawer, and I forgot to take it out of there. So I think that the problem I've realized is me. I tend to put things there and forget about them. But yeah, that's a weird realization to have. Well,
we have one of those gnomes as well in our house that places stuff weird places.
But yeah, so no, that was a weird realization. Other than that, like Marty and Oreo have discussed and brought up, we've been working on building the guild out. Those of us from some other podcasts. Again, I can't reveal quite yet, but we've been working on another project. And I actually had a very interesting conversation last night with another person in the WoW community that I kind of wanted to bring up on today's show before we get going. We've had some talks before on TRC with Ask Mr. Robot. We've had some talks in the Blizzard umbrella with Ask Mr. Robot, and I know you guys have talked about it over at the Blue Recluse. You've talked about it when Dusty and I have been on your show, but there have been some issues in Legion that have come to light about toxicity inside the community, especially with the class discords being as prevalent as they are. And there is an individual out there who is working on a class guide project where all of the guides are primarily opinion based, and they primarily focus on what feels good rather than here's the guide that the 1%ers in the top 10 guilds in the world are going by. And they're primarily trying to focus on, these are our guides and our suggestions based on what feels good to play, what is fun to play, how we feel about them. And I had a very long conversation with him last night, and I got to say, I think his headspace is very good. I think the direction they're trying to go, obviously, when we were talking, we came to the realization that, obviously this type of mentality and these guides are not necessarily conducive to what, maybe a mythic progression rater, but for the majority of the player base that hang out in normal and casual and LFR, these types of guides and accessibility, I think, are phenomenal for the majority of the WoW player base, and they tend to foster a mentality of how you want to play the game is fine. There is really no right answer. I know when talking to the Ask Mr. Robot people, they've said in the past, if you actually do the Sims, there are times where other rotation, other talent choices can perform just as well, if not better, than the ones that are suggested via the class discords or the guides that are currently out there. And we also looked at some data. He did some research to see what people or groups actually control all the guides, across the board from the class discords to the Icy Veins into the Wowhead. And it is astonishing how very little amount of people actually control those. It's a few individuals control a vast majority of what is out there. And one of the problems that stems from that is a very narrow mindset. You know, it's that a lot of people that are not open to opposing viewpoints, so to speak. But I could ramble on this for hours, but I wanted to take a minute to kind of introduce this and also say, for those of you that are out there, if you're not Mythic Raiders, if you're not looking to necessarily max min that 0.5% more DPS by switching to a boots that have maybe like 2 different stat points than the ones you're currently wearing, this place is phenomenal. It's still very much in the beta stages, but the website is called wowplus.org. These are some great individuals. I've had very long conversations with them over the past couple of days. And like I said, he and I probably chatted in Discord voice for almost 3 hours last night. And I got to say, I really, his primary focus is to better the community from a health standpoint and provide more resources that are accessible and friendly and not necessarily discouraging or intimidating to people who may not be that top 1%, which a lot of times you will see in the class Discord. So I wanted to give a short applause to him in a short segment to him and the group that he's got going on over there. So if you guys got time, go on, check it out.
And it's sort of what we're trying to do right now, isn't it? Because when we're talking about these classes, it's not like if you want to be the bomb, play this class. It's more like this feels good to us. So it's not necessarily the right answer to every situation, but it feels good.
And I won't go too much into it today. We will definitely touch on this more in the next episode when we reveal our mains. But for me, I will say this much. When I decide my classes, I start with what feels good. But because I am a Mythic Raider, I also then go through what is the viability of this class. And I may kind of steer my choices in certain directions away from, even though I may enjoy demo locks the most. If they're just at the bottom of the charts, maybe I'll play something else I enjoy. Maybe not as much, but I still enjoy it because I'm obviously not going to bring a character to raid that's going to hold 19 other people back, right? But again, there is...
But Hellstones.
Right. But I mean, it's so astonishing to me how much people are, of the opinion that this is the only way you can go. Well, no, that's not necessarily true. Some things may, some classes may be more difficult to max min versus others or whatever, but I mean, take Beast Mastery Hunters in Legion. Right now, Marksman Hunters on paper technically do more DPS, but the majority of players out there are playing Beast Mastery Hunter because it's a more forgiving class. It's easier to play, and that's okay. They're still carrying their own weight and they're not holding their groups back. And obviously that flexibility increases as you decrease the difficulty of the raid tier. So, but we'll get more into that next week when we talk about what kind of our criterion for our decisions were and why we chose what the path we did and that kind of stuff. And we'll obviously have some more in-depth discussions in that regard next week. But other than that, before we get started today, have you guys noticed any major changes on beta that were worth talking about in your, in your testing this week?
Maybe not beta, but in PTR.
Okay.
I think the latest build was flagged for release, so that's exciting.
Ooh.
So are we thinking what, Tuesday or the week after Tuesday?
Probably week after, I think.
Okay. So 2 weeks. So we'll have finish this week out next week, and then after that, 3 patches there. Yeah, that's the prediction.
That's the prediction.
How about you, Marty?
I agree. I actually thought it would be next week, to be honest, but I think it sounds probably more probable if it's the week after.
And I gotta say, I agree too. I think only 1 week of the artifact ramping up its power and access to the Mage Tower, I think that'd be a little of a short period of time. I think 2 weeks is probably more likely, but who knows? We shall see come Tuesday morning. Other than that, we got 2 classes to discuss. You guys ready to get started?
Sure, let's get going.
Awesome.
Let's do it.
Before I hit this button, guys, I just want to do a friendly reminder like we always do. We are not experts. We are not class guide writers. We are not the top 1% in the world. We are not in the top 10 guilds. Everything we are saying today is primarily opinion-based. Granted, there is some logic and pragmatic decisions behind our opinions. A lot of it is derived from a lot of experience in the game at a high level. But we are not the experts. So if we say something you don't disagree with, if we say something that may technically be wrong, apologies, that wasn't intended. But we don't advertise ourselves as experts, so please don't hold us to that standard. And we'll get along great. Well, maybe not Oreo, but cool. Let's go ahead and hit this button. We're going to talk hunters first. So I'm first up on the docket here, and we will talk some survival. So, survival hunters are the bombs, more bombs, and traps spec. They are melee, which is what they have been in Legion, but up to that point, they've always been a third range spec. So, for those of you who I don't know why you wouldn't be aware of that, but yeah, they are a melee class. They are a builder spender
Wait,
class. They're a builder spender class with focus. The focus and builders and spenders rather also kind of dance around and play around with their dot, which is a Serpent Sting, and bomb procs or kill command procs, which is kind of like Beast Mastery. It's a command that tells your pet to do an increased damage attack to your current target. And so it's it's a builder spender class that also focuses centers around with some other things like a dots and procs. The single target strength is strong. I found I have very little situations where I wasn't in competition for a top spot on the meters from a single target perspective. Their cleave strength, again, oddly enough, is strong. They have a lot of spells that just inherently have AoE or cleave aspects to them built in, which is nice. Their AoE strength is very strong in burst, which is really fun. I didn't think I'd like survival, or it was like, why don't you take survival? I think you'll like it. And he was right, as much as I don't want to admit that. It was a lot of fun. Even the brief time I spent on it in 2 dungeons. Normally I just do 1 dungeon. I do some dummy testing, go over talents, kind of figure out the rotation, and then I jump into 1 dungeon. And this time I actually did 2 because it was a lot of fun. But yeah, I knew, especially with Nighthold on Gul'dan, some Mythic guilds were bringing survival hunters because of how bursty their AoE was, and then we kind of saw them fall to the wayside from there. But I really can see why now that they were in that point for Legion, because their burst damage, especially with their bombs and stuff, can be kind of nutty, which is nice. It's fun. Their target swapping is high. They have this kind of ties into their mobility, which is high too. They have a grappling hook. They have disengage, depending on what race you play. Like I was doing Worgen on mine, so I had Dark Flight, which is their racial to increase their speed. They have a lot of options, and their grappling hook is on a relatively short cooldown, so there were very few situations where I found the need for it, and it'd be on cooldown. So that was really nice. I'd be already on the target, and all the other melee would be trying to run to catch up. So that was awesome. Their DPS cooldowns, they don't have a lot of cooldowns, but they do have coordinated assault, which increases their damage along with their pets for a short period of time. And during that window, I kind of figured out that it kind of reprioritizes how you build and spend your focus and what you prioritize in that window. And so that window had a lot of damage pumping out very quickly, which was kind of fun to see. And they also have Aspect of the Eagle, which is very unique because all of their spells except for one, which is their Mongoose Bite, you can use at range. Like your kill command, you can use at ranged. Your Serpent Sting, you can use at ranged. And your bombs, you can use at range. But your Mongoose Bite is what keeps you in the melee range. But Aspect of the Eagle will allow you to have your Mongoose Bite as well, which are all 4 of your spells for your rotation primarily that you can use at 40-yard range, 45-yard range, something like that. And so if you ever have a mechanic where melee has to get out and range can continue to DPS, well, guess what? You can become a range for a short period of time, which is really nice. So that was a lot of fun. Their utility, they're hunters, but they are the trap spec, so they have a lot of traps, interrupts, misdirect, which is going to be used a little bit more in BFA because of the tanking threat issues. They have their lost my train of thought here. Sorry. Utility, where are we? Okay, all right. Misdirect, and then I also have Binding Shot if you talent into it, which is definitely has this niche moments where it's useful. Their survivability, they are hunters. They have Aspect of the Turtle. They have Exhilaration. I personally listed their survivability at medium. When they have both of those things available to them, their survivability is great. But those 2 things are on a bit of a longer cooldown. And so outside of those being up, you are squishy. And so you can't, sometimes it might be prevalent to not just use it when you want to. You may have to kind of say, wait, well, I think my healers can get to me. Maybe I'll save it for later on down the road.
Just use first aid.
Sad tears. But yeah, general feel for me, this class, like I've already said, was super fun. It's bursty and very short, frequent windows, and because of that frequency of when those windows come up, the damage felt consistent, and so to me, it didn't really feel bad that I was kind of trying to wait for those windows of burst because they happen frequent enough. So that was a lot of fun. And what's really nice is compared to the iteration we are currently seeing on Legion, this current iteration on BFA and beta, the spells have a lot of synergy with one another, which wasn't necessarily the case with Legion. And so it was a lot of fun. It felt like every spell I was pressing had a purpose, and it wasn't just like, well, it's off cooldown, so I guess I'll use it, which was nice. I don't know. I tend to I like whack-a-mole, but I like whack-a-mole when the core of my rotation does have an ebb and flow to it. For me, to kind of round things up, my likelihood for this to be a main, I like my steak analogy, so I'm going to go with well done. This class was a ton of fun. The numbers I put out, even I think with the number tweaking, I think this class is definitely going to have some viability and rating. So that is survival.
Yeah, I actually ended up on a hunter block by mistake when I did a little bit of a research for this, and they said that survival actually felt better than beast mastery when it comes to how you engage with the pet. It feels like you have more interaction, and it feels like you're a team when you're killing stuff. Is that correct in your uptake as well? Or?
Yeah, so yes, because a lot of people, when they consider hunters, like I have a good friend of mine that just recently came back to the game and he wanted to play hunter, but he didn't want to play hunter because he had to manage a pet. And so he gravitated towards marksman and was it lonely wolf or lonely hunter or whatever. Lone wolf, lonely. He's sad, he's depressed. Lone hunter talent where you don't have to use a pet. And I've always played classes with pets for like the last 4 or 5 expansions. Just recently I've kind of gravitated away from that, whether it was a frost mage or hunter. So I just got used to always micromanaging my pet. It didn't become an issue for me. But I understand why people hate that aspect, and there a lot of the times, because the kill command is part of my main rotation, very rarely did I ever find a point where I felt like I had to manage my pet. It just felt like an extension of what I'm already doing, which was really nice. I think that answers your question, maybe?
Yeah, sure. I'll take it.
So, Oreo, I know you've had some time to play survival. What have your opinions been so far?
I like it. Same as you. I found it was really well done. This is the one class that Blizzard really had to go back through and change up, because obviously currently on Legion it's very unforgiving, and that just makes it unfun for a lot of people. That's why you don't ever see survival hunters in raiding.
And it doesn't really feel fun either, to me at least, on live. It doesn't. I don't know. It just doesn't have that something.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I'm not sure what it is.
it just feels like you slip up a little bit right now, and suddenly you just drop. But at least they've changed it. I mean, there's still a lot of things to manage, but they all work together, so you're going to be using it anyways.
Marty, to expand upon what you were just saying, that's been one of the largest complaints from people about Survival Hunter in Legion. And one of the things to me when I look at a class that will really set that class apart from others is, does that class feel good without set bonuses? If it takes set bonuses to give that class that last piece of the puzzle to make it feel good.
Or legendary.
Right. There's something broken with it, right? And to kind of take that even further, what I mean by feel good is, does that class's rotation, does the feel of its spells, do they kind of naturally flow well without bringing something else into the piece of the pie? And that was the case with hunters, survival hunters, more specifically. I think what was it? Was it Tomb or was it Nighthold that their set bonuses actually made them have like a rotation and that feel decent? You remember, Oreo? I want to say Nighthold.
I think it was Nighthold as well.
Okay. Which would make sense considering groups were bringing them for the eyes on Mythic Gul'dan. But they just felt like crap without set bonuses in Legion, and the other classes at least had some semblance of a rotation and a decent feel without best in slot legendaries or set bonuses. Where they needed that last piece of the puzzle to make things fit, and it just didn't feel good. So, um,
And I thought it was really a shame because I was one. I know a lot of people didn't like that. That why should hunters also have a melee spec? But I actually quite liked it seen from a fantasy standpoint because it made no sense to me when weapons were taken away from hunters, because hunters in my mind can also use swords and melee weapons and things like that. So I was quite happy to see that they got a melee spec, but really sad to see how it actually played when I got my hands on it.
yeah, no,
So
I'm with you there.
if they fixed it now, that's good.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, Marty, since you're already talking, I'm gonna let you keep talking, and we are going to talk Beast Mastery.
Yeah. So basically, I think nothing has really changed. They still have 4 abilities, and you just switch Dire Beast out with a shot instead. That adds a dot, and then you have the new Beastmaster, pretty much. So that's it. Have fun. No, uh, it hasn't changed too much. Well, it has changed a little bit. It's still you get a lot of your damage from your hunter pet. That's why I've called it a ranged / melee class as a DPS style, because you still want that pet to be in range to actually be able to hit stuff while you shoot and tell your pet to do damage. So it seems like in single target it does pretty well, but when it comes to cleave and AoE, it gets. I know I wrote weak, but it should probably be weaker than Legion is right now. It has been some of the AoE damage from the pet has been taken away at the moment. So they're not as strong as they were as they are live right now. Target trapping, though, it shouldn't be too much of a diff. It shouldn't be too bad as long as you get your pet over there. Then it should work out. And when it comes to mobility, it's really high. They have everything is instant, so they should just be able to run around and don't stand in fire and stuff. Hunters, so don't do that. When it comes to cooldowns, Bestial Wrath is the go-to together with Aspect of the Wild, so nothing has changed there, and you can talent into Stampede for some extra single target damage. Utility-wise, it's the same old, nothing new here. They have the counter shot, which is an interrupt, freeze trap, CC. But as something new, all Ferocity Hunter pets will have Primal Rage, which is a heroism. So they can now have heroism as well. And lastly, they have the Tar Trap, which is a group slow. So the same old utility, but with every hunter now has the possibility to have a heroism. And I just saw as well, by the way, just as a side note, that you can't actually spec the pets anymore. Is that correct, right? That the pets that you get, they actually have a fixed spec now, like the old days. So you can't really talent into what you want now. You have to go get those pets.
Yeah, that hasn't been a thing for new expansions, right?
No, in Legion you can spec them, I'm pretty sure, can't you? Maybe chat can help us out. I'm pretty sure you can spec the pets as you want right now.
I haven't touched my hunter since, other than to level it, since Warlord, so I'm not quite sure.
No, I'm like 99% sure, but I won't. Don't quote me on it. Survivability is I think I wrote high. I did mean medium, just like you guys as well. Because as you said, when those abilities are on cooldown, then you don't really have too much else to do. But I mean, your mobility is so high, just move out, right? Don't stand and stuff, and you should be fine.
So chat just informed us that no matter what pet you tamed, you can go in and set that pet to be a tenacity or ferocity or whatever in Legion.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
They've gone back to the old ways.
That goes away in BFA, and yeah. Just out of curiosity, what do you guys think about that? Does you pro or against it? Or
I'm all for it, man. That's part of the fantasy behind the class, you know. Every class has their fantasy, and I think Blizzard is doing a good job of trying to steer back in that direction and making every class unique and kind of keep the fantasy within the realm of acceptable. And part of the fun of a hunter is going out and taming pets, you know. And what was it, Mists and stuff like that. They had all those different unique pets that had like a challenge to tame them, which was a lot of fun. I did quite a bit of that. I was maining a hunter at the time, and so yeah, I'm all for it. You know, if you're gonna play a hunter in any sort of progression way, you should go ahead and go get the pets to handle various environments. If you're, especially in Mythic Pluses, I think you're really going to start to see hunter pets from that standpoint, kind of come more to the front line in Mythic Pluses with your you can essentially bring a 6 player of utility with that pet. So yeah, I'm all for it.
Yeah. And also, just as a side note, that the since we don't have the artifact anymore, we won't have that extra pet unless I think you have to spec into it if I remember correctly. So you can actually have that extra pet, which I don't know. As a Beastmaster hunter, I don't know if it's the best choice, but I mean, I'm a Beastmaster. Of course, I'm going to have multiple pets, right? That's how you just have to go about it. The general feel, it's not too different from Legion. It's only a few abilities you need to keep track of. Obviously, if you want to master it, there's still a little bit for you to do there. But I think this would be, if you're new to raiding, it's probably a good starter choice because a few abilities to keep track of, and the higher mobility it's what's not to like. Likelihood to be a main is only a medium, though they can't heal and they can't tank yet. So I like to have a few more tricks to play around with. But if I was to go a pure DPS class, then I think Hunter would actually be pretty high up on the list, and I have mained a Hunter before, so it's definitely something. It's probably one of the first alts I'll level.
There you go. Marty, be careful you don't give the cat away too early.
Oh, I'm totally going to not pick this or pick this. Who knows?
Yeah, it's. Oh no! Now we're down one class that Marty.
So
I just totally destroyed the odds for people who are gambling.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
what I find interesting is something you said, Ryan, that each class has its own unique play style, its own class fantasy. Now, with these two specs we've covered, I find that they're more similar than they have been.
In Legion, compared to like they're more similar in BFA than they were in Legion.
Yeah, you're seeing kill command being in survival.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the only difference that I've found between the two is with one you're hitting it with a sword or an axe or something, and the other one you're sitting back with a gun or a bow or crossbow. Obviously, bombs being one side and pet-based cooldowns being on the other, but I just find that they're very similar.
Well, and I have wondered that too because I've kind of, if you think like, so take yourself out of video games, right, and think about history. Think about all the different hunters we've seen. We've seen nomadic hunters, you know, cultures that hunt with bows, cultures that hunt with spears, cultures that hunt with traps. You know, you have all these varying methods to hunt. And so from that perspective, as a hunter, I can understand why, okay, survival is the melee spear class, you know, marksman. Marksman and beast mastery I've always kind of figured out were a little bit different. Like marksman to me should be the gun and beast mastery should be the bow. Whatever. But I'm with you. I kind of like why is Blizzard so reluctant to not allow all 3 specs to have pets? You know what I mean? Like to me, beast mastery should be the pet spec. Hunter, you know, marksman should be they're just hunting with a ranged weapon, and then survival should be they're just hunting with traps and a melee weapon. You know, but so I am with you there, Oreo.
It is also what the blog that I was reading on also said that the survival did actually feel better from having a pet. It actually felt better than the beast mastery spec, which is like, hey, beast mastery should be about the pets, right? So yeah, but I think that article was also before the latest beast mastery changes, so maybe it has changed a little bit now. I don't know.
The other thing I was gonna say, you don't know frustration until you're Beast Mastery Hunter on target swapping when the targets are on like the opposite sides of a room and you're
Yeah.
sitting there
And you have to wait for your pet to
spamming,
get over there.
yeah, spamming your kill command. Come on, run faster.
Yeah, but I mean that's why I also said it's range slash melee because it's the same issues that melee has, right? If they need to switch target and they need to run to the other way of the room, and it's the same issues. And we actually had one Beastmaster hunter in our guild who kept asking if he could be classified as a melee because his pet had to switch targets.
Sorry about your luck, man. Nope, you're ranged. So we will continue to move forward here. And Oreo, I'm going to hit your button, and marksmanship is all you.
All right, marksmanship. It's the sniper class. It is built around long range, big heavy hitting things. It's a little bit different now than it is in Legion. Legion, you're based around this vulnerability window of, you use your vulnerability to deal more damage, and you use your aim shots. As the class progressed through Legion, it became a little bit more awkward, with the windows being tighter to try and get the most out of them. But now Blizzard's basically done a 180 from that. Now it's no longer about small, short windows of dealing damage. Now you are consistently pumping out large numbers. It's slower, but that kind of fits into the theme of, taking aim and firing. So I have written down here a few things. Single target strength is very high. You can talent into certain things to make it even better or smoother. Their cleave strength is a little bit lower just because of the fact that you have to have, I believe, 3 targets for it to have like bounce shots and stuff going on. Their AoE strength comes primarily from talenting into volley and using that with stacked groups in conjunction with, multi-shot and all these other things. But that also makes it very easy to target swap since you no longer have this vulnerability. And that was always the biggest issues by the time you got it up. Either something was dead or, mechanics were happening or something like that. But because they're such a slow and steady class, their mobility, they have good mobility, but you're not going to be dealing very much damage while you're moving, if any at all, really. The DPS cooldowns is going to be True Shot is your big one, and Double Tap is a talent that makes your aim shot hit twice, which is kind of I see that being more based PvP when you need that finishing shot kind of thing going on. But I guess if you have bursts on priority ads, you could be using that. Utility, it's the same across the whole thing. I believe you're going to be seeing hunters use a lot more misdirection for marksmanship just because they are primarily dealing the damage through themselves onto tanks, to help with the threat issue. If people haven't really been paying attention to beta, threat issues are huge with tanks. A lot of DPS are peeling off them, and so this is going to be a really important thing, is to have misdirection. Pretty much with how it is right now, think of every week you have, is it Skitter? What is that?
Skittish.
Plus one. Skittish, that's right. Basically, that is how life is now, so deal with it. Survivability. Now, using, like we've seen throughout this expansion as well, with hunters being the soak mechanic god because of their turtle. They have a self-heal, but also as a marksmanship hunter, if you choose to go the lone wolf route, so no pet, you are given an additional cooldown which reduces the damage you take by 20%. So that's kind of a nice ebb and flow if you want to have the pet and have that, mobile on the go damage, or do you want to have the higher damage coming from yourself and being able to have an external that does a little bit to help with, not dying from one shots and whatnot. So general feel, like I said, it's a very slow and steady spec. You're gonna find yourself sitting there and hard casting aim shots And if that's not something that you like, then this class probably wouldn't be for you. Um, I mean, I didn't really enjoy it, so that's why I put it down as medium. I should put it down as medium to low. Um, yeah, that's marksmanship.
Um, sorry, I'm looking at our guild members banter back and forth in Twitch chat there. Yeah, I have yet to have a chance to play marksman, and like I said, I've mained a hunter before Legion, ever since Cataclysm and Pandaland and all three warlords, and I played survival for a long time, and marksman. I just have never been a fan of beast mastery. Just the idea of it kind of bores me. But I would have not been a fan of hunter, especially marksman in Legion. It's been a very, very punishing spec. And so I'm actually kind of excited after, you and I have talked off air and now hearing you say all this to kind of get in there and play some marksman. One thing I wanted to bring up as a mythic raider, and you made mention of the fact that they gain a damage reducer with the lone wolf talent, correct?
Mm-hmm.
That to me already, like, let's say I have another talent that would give me maybe 3 to 5% more damage, or I could take that one and have that damage reduction. I could see situations where certain mechanics on fights, like, they would absolutely disregard the damage, especially at really high end where the players can negate those differences because they're still going to pump out a ton of damage, and take that damage reduction talent via lone wolf.
Yeah, and I mean that also just plays into what we were talking about earlier with the marksman, being the sniper, sitting back, not really a pet-based class. So I think that they're playing into that. I think that they're just trying to play both sides of the fence because there are people that like the pet side of it, and there's people who don't like the pet side of it. But how do you balance a class around that without having to go one way or the other? So they've kind of taken the middle road on it, it feels like.
Yeah. Well, I think Hunter has just been kind of underrepresented comparatively to what we've seen in past expansions outside of Beast Mastery. But I mean, it seems like other than one guild this expansion, yes, I know Oreo and I have been in about 6 or 7 guilds this expansion. But other than one group, we have seen very little representation from the Hunter class in all of our raid groups. And in past expansions, it seemed like you couldn't get away from Hunters. And so...
I was gonna say they kind of have a bad name for themselves in the raiding scene.
So I'd like to see that change. I would always like to see personally a diversity from a viability standpoint in raid groups and raid comps. I think every class should have strong viability, but again, that would require a perfect world, which doesn't exist. From Blizzard's tuning and stuff like that, it's incredibly hard to achieve that goal. But yeah, so that's going to be marksman. And you guys want to add anything about hunters before we kind of move on and move forward here?
I feel that with the changes I guess Beastmaster's always been able to bring a heroism, but I feel that now that it's a big thing, part of the ferocity hunter ability, watch out shamans, I guess.
Dun, dun, dun. All your mail belong to me.
Yeah, I can't argue. But I'm going to hit this button here, and we're going to move on to the very last class for the Battle for a Main series. Yeah, I know. Sad tears. We'll have to wait an entire expansion before we do this again.
Oh, no.
No more spreadsheets. But yeah, so we're going to talk monk now, guys. I have the Brewmaster Monk. This is the Drunken Kung Fu Tank. Here, before I move forward, I just want to let it be known. I want to go on record. If you are playing a tank class, your character should be big and should be fat. There's no, I don't know why it's always bugged me when you see a gnome or a goblin tank running around. Like, there's no way that little tiny thing should be able to be taking these massive, like, 8-9 million hits from this boss. It just doesn't make sense. But big and fat, that's the way to go if you're going to play a tank.
So are you saying Pandaren or not at all?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're going to be yeah. Well, I mean, I guess on the Horde side, you can be a Tauren or an Orc.
No.
Oh, Marty shut me down.
Pandarin or nothing.
All right, Marty. Marty's the oldest guy around on this
See?
podcast, so Marty rules.
Even Twitch chats agreed with me on that.
Panda or bust, just like their waistline. But yeah, so this is the tank class. They are a class again that they're kind of a builder spender, but they're more spender than they are builder. But I found the passive generation rate for energy was enough that I never ever felt starved. Their rotation and feel, it's simple. There's really not a rotation or an ebb and flow from their spells, but from a tanking standpoint, that was fine. You know, there were a few times where I maybe saved my keg smash or my what is the fire spell, Oreo?
Breath of Fire.
Yeah, there you go. I kept wanting to say Spitfire, but you know, if I knew I was gonna be pulling a bunch of mobs, I might save my smash and my fire along with my ox statue. But other than that, it didn't feel like some of the other classes where you'd hold back on certain spells. You just kind of use things when they're available and didn't really worry about it too much. Their single target strength was fine. Very rarely did I ever feel like I was getting hit like a truck, and I would, account that to the stagger mechanics that the class has. Their cleave strength, again, they have a lot of spells that can naturally just do AoE and cleave, and so I felt very little issue with cleave tanking and threat and stuff like that. And again, with stagger, the mechanics having 2 mobs hit me, even if they were arguably boss level, it never feel like an issue. Their AoE strength, I've tested a few tanks now on beta, and I gotta say I was kind of worried about monks because they don't have a lot of ranged abilities to grab mobs, but with the cooldown of their ox statue and the cooldown of taunt, it very, very rarely did I ever have an issue with AoE tanking. So that was nice. Their mobility is fantastic. They have roll or chi torpedo depending on how you talent, and you can gain charges of whatever. But it's, yeah, again, very rarely did I ever find mobility issues with this particular spec and class, which is great. Their tanky cooldowns, they have Zen Meditation, which, you know, is kind of unique in the sense that you can use it, but if you get hit or you move or whatever, it cancels it right there. So you know, it's kind of a 1 damage off use. They have Fortifying Brew, which is nice, which is kind of their shield wall. It increases the amount you can stagger and your at max health, which is really nice. Again, they're not going to have stagger's a very unique mechanic, so this is, while it ultimately will achieve the same results as a shield wall type spell, it is a little bit different and nice. They also have, I listed on here, Purifying and Iron Skin Brew. They are 2 spells they have that are a very, very short, like couple of second cooldown. But they each have 3 charges, and they kind of do different things in terms of either reducing the amount you stagger or clearing your stagger or whatever. And so these 2 spells, while yes, you can use them whenever you want, there is a little bit of uniqueness in the sense that depending on the situation you might be in, you're going to want to use one versus the other. So I've listed them as cooldowns. And then obviously Guard or Dampen Harm, which I don't have listed here, but is on there depending on the fight you're up against and how you choose to talent. Their utility, they have Paralysis, they have Stun, and they can also talent into Ring of Peace. We saw a lot of Ring of Peace use in Legion, especially in this last tier. And so I think it is pertinent to list it as utility, because I think moving forward, we are going to see a lot more of mechanics and raids that involve classes doing something other than avoiding fire or just damaging. You know, I think we'll probably see some more CC.
Is CC coming back?
I hope so, man. I found those fights a lot of fun because it kind of brought the pressure off. Are you doing enough damage? And more to, can you do these fights? You know, and to me, that was always more fun. Not to say that I can't do the DPS, but just the fight felt more fun and unique, and it didn't feel like every other fight we've always done.
Yeah, I just remember back, if we have to go back and play the old card and say I played in vanilla, and I remember when you couldn't even do a dungeon without having at least 2 to 3 CC classes with you sometimes, and I mean that's probably a little bit too excessive sometimes. But at least using some CC should be there in my opinion, because it adds something to the players. It adds a little bit of difficulty. Can you actually not hit the target that you're supposed not to be hitting and stuff like that? So I'd hope to see some CC coming back as well.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think that's great. Oreo, you have any thoughts here? I mean, this we're not done with Monk Brewmasters yet, but
No, I guess like you're talking fights like Agrimar and whatnot, where you have to CC ads.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that it makes it so that you do have to. Not only is it less of a DPS thing, but you can also bring a variety of classes that have that ability as well.
Right.
But to have a tank, they can throw down Ring of Peace, and you have, say, we'll use Agrimar as an example. You have 3 ads running in, you drop that Ring of Peace, and it knocks them back for that duration. Like, that's so helpful in the long run.
Yeah.
Especially in Mythic, where you get over 3 stacks, and it's game over.
Right.
So to have that, it's a very nice emergency thing to do, and to have like an AoE stun to drop and have paralysis. I think that they have very good CC abilities. So
Yeah. So yeah, no, that's their utility, and I gotta say I agree with both these guys. For their survivability, so back to Brewmasters here, they are very strong survivability in my opinion, and they're not Their survivability is not in the traditional sense that you would see with other tanks. Again, I've said it before. They have a stagger mechanic. Stagger basically takes the damage. What you would normally take, so like if you were to take 5 million damage for a hit, it would take a lot of that damage, and it would basically turn that damage into a dot that slowly comes in and ticks on you. And so it makes the damage much more mitigatable. But they do have some situations and mechanics like we saw with Varamathras and Taurus, where when they get that misery debuff and they can't be healed because of their stagger, they're still taking damage. Whereas the other tanks, even though if they're sitting at 20% health, they can kind of stand off the side and be okay. And so their uniqueness does kind of play against them at times, but for the most part, stagger is a phenomenal tanking mechanic. The general feel, there's a little bit more micromanagement with this class because of that stagger mechanic, but it doesn't feel overwhelming. And it felt more fun. Some of the tanking classes, Guardian Druids, can be very boring. Whereas Monk, I always had something to do, which was kind of fun, but it didn't feel like to the point where I couldn't pay attention to what was going on around me because I was like, oh crap, what do I got to press? It did never feel like that. Likelihood to be a main, medium well for me, state quality wise. It's a lot of fun. I have nothing to say negatively about Brewmasters, but it's just one of those things. While I can't quite put my finger on it, when I do play this class, I do not find myself having as much fun as I would with, say, maybe some of the other tank classes.
Did you play as a panda?
No, I played as
that's where you go wrong.
I played as the
that's what broke it.
I played as the new orc class. I wanted to try out their racial.
Yeah, you should have gone panda. Then you had way more fun.
My I didn't have big enough pants. I accidentally turned the dryer on too high and they shrunk, and I couldn't wear my pants anymore. So, but yeah. So the kind of the side note I had a lot to kind of put here as we kind of segue out of this is this class has a lot of survivability management at their disposal, which is really nice because a lot of other tank classes, like let's say you have a point where you need to use a cooldown, you got to use it, and then you have nothing left at your disposal until that cooldown is back up. Well, this class still has some other minor tools at their disposal where they can mitigate, prolong their life, whatever, help their healers out, or and so I said at their disposal because I didn't want to make this seem like a negative aspect. This is a good aspect, I think. This class has a lot of tools to provide answers for a lot of situations. So, did either of you guys get a chance to play Brewmaster before we move on?
Yeah, I did a little bit.
Yeah, that kind of sounded a little saucy there. Yeah. Jesus,
yeah.
man. Thought you're supposed to be Canadian and nice.
No, no, I missed that one. But yeah, I did a couple dungeons as a brewmaster just to get a general feel of how they stack up against other things. Um, they feel the best, I feel, in dungeons. I think you're gonna see them a lot in Mythic Plus with the fact that they can CC on the go. They have AoE stun. You can have Ring of Peace. Just simple things like that make a huge difference. Where they'll stack up in raids, I guess it just depends how much big tank damage there is coming their way.
Yeah. Just want to make note we have a panda side boob conversation going on in Twitch chat. Oh man. But anyway, sorry I got distracted by side boob.
Side sidetracked.
Sidetracked by a side boob.
Pun intended. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, you get the idea. Um so Marty, have you had a chance? I know you were kind of tend to gravitate towards healers and tanks. Have you had a chance to play much Brewmaster or no? Or
Not on the beta. I don't know. There's some bug at the moment, or maybe I've just been ignorant. I don't know what to do. But when I created any character I created on the beta today, I did not get the quest to actually start and get into the the, the new area and stuff. So I couldn't actually test any of this out in dungeons because I just simply couldn't unlock it. So most of my information is from what I've read and seen on YouTube.
Yeah, it's broken right now. It's very
Yeah, yeah.
what? Blizzard. Blizzard, come on. It was you're killing my podcast here, Blizzard. Anyways, we will move on here to the Mistweaver. Marty, take it away.
All right, so the Mistweaver is a healer who masters the mysterious art of manipulating life energy, taken directly from in-game. That checks this. They are a healer. The healing style is misty, as I wrote. They have a lot of mists that floats around and heals. Uh, it's pretty fun. That I've been looking around a lot of different sources, and a lot of them are all saying that we're trying to figure out um, what 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 is this what is the speciality of a Mistweaver healing monk, and everybody's sort of saying we can't really figure it out. We don't really know what the specialty is because they're good all-round healer. They're good in any situation. They're not the best, but they're just good all round. That being said, though, they have quite a few different talents where they can talent into being great at specific situations, and there's even a Mistweaver build that seems like it should be doing pretty all right in the beta right now. So it's going to be interesting to see if that still holds up on live. So single target cleave AoE, they're pretty good all the way around, and that combined with the high mobility, which is even better than a shaman, seems like this class is something that you could bring to pretty much anything. Mythic Plus, they seem pretty strong there as well. Also, what I could read was that the numbers are pretty high right now. They are like, I mean, even the I think was the method raid healing guide said that this class is 10 out of 10 right now, but they are probably the numbers are probably a little bit too high right now. So we should probably wait and see with the numbers adjustments to see if they will probably bring it down. And I think it was even higher earlier. So Mistweaver is in a weird spot right now where they're really, really strong, and it's probably not intentional. But I also don't feel, I have to say that Mistweaver is the healing class that I don't like it. I don't like it on live. I haven't liked it in any of the earlier iterations. I still don't really like it. Uh, so I'm not really too well into them. But I think it seems like it's fairly fairly close to what is live right now in how they play and feel. They still have the same healing cooldowns. They have revival and live cocoon. Though I believe live cocoon is a little bit less strong now, from what I could read at least. Utility-wise, they have leg sweep, which is an AoE stun, and paralysis, which is a CC. So our ability high, and the general feel is, as I already said, not my cup of thunder focus tea. So likelihood to be main, pretty low. Even though I mean, Brewmaster is something that I like. I like the playstyle. So I mean, if it was some of the other specs, then I could be maybe convinced to try it out. But yeah, but as a Mist Reaver, as a raid, I'd probably say low. It's not my playstyle.
I think that's fair enough. Excuse me.
But yeah,
Oreo, did you get a chance to play
it
it?
really annoys me. It really annoys me that I couldn't get into a dungeon and at least try it out properly, because it was really hard for me to really gauge how it actually plays out in the beta, because standing around in Akroma and healing stuff, it's just not really telling me much, to be honest.
Yeah, fair enough. So you did touch about how Method was talking about the general numbers for these healers, and through that, Mistweaver ended up on the very top. Now, I would say that you should be very careful about it, because Blizzard is very famous for, oh, something is good, let's just overdo it on the other way. But right now, they are kind of the healer that can do it all. They have that Life Cocoon external for the tank. They have like the good AoE heals. They have the throughput that like other classes don't really they lack. Looking at like Holy Paladin and whatnot. So I feel that if today they went forward with the numbers and everything that everything's doing, you're gonna see Mythic guilds stack them, which is not what I think Blizzard wants. So expect that nerf coming down the tube pretty quick.
To answer the Twitch chat,
and all the sources I've found have said the same, that they are really strong right now, and that will most likely only go one way, and that it's not up.
yeah. To answer the Twitch chat, no. If you are underperforming, bad or broken, you tend to get underbuffed, if you could call it that. Even they tend to over nerf things and underbuff things. So, sorry about your luck, pimp.
Yeah, your class will get fixed in the next expansion or two.
Yeah. So, I am of the opinion. I think a lot of what we are seeing right now is going to shift. Maybe not necessarily 180, but I think things will tend to marginalize more once we start getting into raid gear, more Azerite gear, higher item levels, even in the first tier of raiding. So whether or not that holds to be true is yet to be seen.
Yeah,
we'll see.
But again, I mean, sure, Mistweaver is really high up there right now, and everybody's saying if you want to play healer, this is what you should play. I still don't find the fun in it, so I would never choose this, because it's just not
What
fun
is it
for me
about
to
the
play,
class you
so.
don't find fun, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't know what it is. It's just everything confuses me, I think. And all the mist, and I'm just having such a hard time just getting into the class, and I don't know. I mean, I did, when we were leveling, I was leveling together with another dude who played Brewmaster, and I played Mistweaver, and so we get the fast queues and stuff, and it I don't know, it just didn't appeal to me, the way that it worked, and I have tried multiple times on different levels, being it just level through dungeons, or actually get it to max level and get it into not Mythic Plus, but at least some at Heroic and normal Mythic, and I just can't. I can't find the fun in it. It's just not me. I guess I really just want to be that stationary healer, just standing there healing as a holy priest, apparently.
Fair enough. So, let me hit this button, and Oreo is going to give our very last talk here.
The last one.
Here we
go.
Take it away.
Yeah, I'm going to talk Windwalker, which is the Kung Fu Master spec. Melee DPS. Now I've messed around a little bit with it on beta here, even just before we started up. Um, those who were expecting big radical changes, that's not really what's going to happen here. It's pretty much status quo, same thing. Um, but I feel that they have it down pat and it works for this class. It has so many fun little tacky things that it does. Fist of Fury. Uh, what was the AOE talent? Is it Cyclone Kick? Is that the
Oh,
one?
spinning crane kick.
Yes, yes, spinning crane kick. Now, anybody who's been in Mythic pluses in Legion knows that when you pop Storm, Earth, and Fury with the crane kick, it's unreal how much AOE that they can pump out, and to have that kind of tied into the overall flow of the spec, you don't really feel like you're pushing buttons because you have to. It feels like you have just very short cooldowns that you rotate through consistently, punch, kick, punch, onwards and onwards with that. So it feels very, very fun. Um, they have very, very good single target strength with their Rising Sun kick. The AoE and cleave is fantastic with the way that Fist of Fury works. I believe you can talent into another AoE kick that works when you have your two main abilities on cooldown. Their mobility is ridiculous. You can either take Cheat Torpedo and be zooming around everywhere. Do we lose Marty?
May look that way. Well,
Uh,
we'll keep moving forward here and see if he comes back.
but so you have the Cheat Torpedo. You also have Tiger's Lust. They are like a very, very mobile class. I can see them being very useful in dungeons with the on-demand utility I spoke with earlier, leg sweep paralysis. They get the 5% physical damage done on target for your group, which is huge. I think you're gonna see at least one monk in every raid. It's gonna be almost necessary because 5% over the course of a fight is huge, especially at the higher end. Now, moving on to their survivability, they are ridiculously high survivability. They have self heals. You can talent into basically cooldown based survivability, or you can have a passive one, which I think when you max it out, you have a passive 10% damage reduction rolling at all times while you're fighting. So that's kind of a very interesting thing to bake in there. They also have Touch Karma, I believe is what it's called. The being able to take the damage that you deal and put it back on the boss or on whatever's attacking you. It's also kind of in a way a damage cooldown that you could use, which is kind of an interesting way to turn it on to whatever's attacking you. So I've already said it's super fun. You always feel that you are doing something uh, to, I guess, with the way the mastery works, with kind of jumping through, uh, never having to push the same button twice, kind of thing, just based off how the class works. It makes it feel very interesting. You're going to be pushing buttons that maybe you wouldn't consider being part of your rotation, but they actually do something to help. Um, it also gives it a bit more of an active playstyle. Depending on how you talent it, you can either have, the passive 10% energy regeneration, or you can have talent into being able to have an on-demand 3 chi generator and just having a lot of fun. You can have a lot of buttons or a little bit of buttons, but you'll still have the same fun with that spec. So that is Windwalker.
Um, I know currently on live, the class has the damage modifier from using a different spell each time.
Mm-hmm.
Is that continuing with BFA?
Yeah, like I said, it's pretty much the same.
Now, one of the issues with that in Legion was that the uptime of the buff was so short that if you had to do any sort of like long distance target swapping, your damage really suffered because of that. Is that still the case?
I do not believe that it's as big of a deal. I believe that it is just more baked to the class now. The mastery is based off of, you're going to kick, punch, then do another spell, then another spell. You're never going to be casting the same one twice in a row just to get the most out of your class. And I believe that was kind of based more off of a tier set, if I remember correctly. That they had that, limit window of if it dropped off, then it felt bad.
The point I noticed that was primarily an issue was during Nighthold. Now, whether or not that was associated to a tier bonus or not, I do not know. Mm-hmm. But I know that has been an issue in Legion, so I was just curious.
I think.
Go ahead.
I think that those people that like having the big numbers come up really fast, so having on an AoE pack, popping Storm, Earth, and Fire, and then doing your spinning crane kick and just watching the numbers just go through the roof, you're gonna still enjoy that. It's still gonna be a lot of fun.
I'd like to point out that a prime example of our earlier FYI / disclaimer of not always being the experts, maybe getting some things wrong. Looks like in chat some people are calling it Cyclone, some people are calling it Spinny Kick. I know that one's wrong.
Spinny Kick.
But if we have gotten the Spinning Crane Kick name wrong, maybe I watched too much Kung Fu Panda. I don't know, but it's the Spinny Kick. The one where you spin around on one leg like a ballerina, your other leg extended outwards, and you do a bunch of AoE.
Yeah, from now on it'll be called Spinny Kick.
I'm getting a lot of Spinny Kick popularity in Twitch chat at the moment. So Spinny Kick it is. Go ahead, Marty.
I remember in Pandora, there's this funny little tale about the Windwalker monk, because there is, I don't know if they have it anymore, but there is like a buff that you can add, and then your Spinning Kick is doing increased damage, or that used to be at least. And at some point during our raid night, Blizzard was doing some tweaking of the numbers, and they made a mistake, so that bonus damage you got was so insanely high that they could pretty much, the Windwalker monks could like solo bosses. And I don't do this at home. If you find exploits like this, don't use them. But we did. So we killed like 4 bosses in one night, new bosses in one night on a progression raid, and we got a lot of gear. And yeah, it got taken away from us again afterwards. And yeah, but there was a lot of question on the servers about how we killed so many new bosses in a brand new raid that just had come out and stuff like that. So and we were a new guild as well, so people didn't really believe that we did it.
It's where you just flex.
Yeah, but it was fun. It was a really fun raid night.
I can imagine. Oreo, if you could figure out how to make that happen, that'd be great. Thanks.
We'll get on that right away.
Cool. Silk, I know you're in chat too. Make it happen, please. Thank you.
So we're just gonna stack Windwalkers now.
In hopes that Blizzard accidentally tweaks the numbers in the wrong / right direction. So we are getting closer to BFA dropping. We have finally concluded each and every class and spec. I wanted to, for those of you in chat, those of you joining us the first time on your podcatcher of choice, maybe you're a repeat customer, I don't know. Want to say thank you guys for listening. This has been certainly a interesting ride to do this Battle for a Main series. It's been a lot of fun. We've learned a lot. It's forced all of us to kind of play each and every class, maybe not every spec, but
I don't think I've been so much prepared for an expansion.
Right. My level of familiarity with all the classes and specs in the game is at an all-time high because of this project and some other guild stuff that's going on. But I did want to take a moment to say thank you for everybody joining us, whether it's the first time or, like I said, you're a repeat customer. This has been a fun ride, and hopefully we will continue this project in a similar fashion towards the end of BFA, going into whatever expansion comes next. And hopefully we'll make it bigger and better and improve upon what we've done so far. But that being said, without giving away the prize here, are you guys, I guess we'll start with Oreo, we'll go left to right on my Discord screen here. Oreo, have you figured out your main so far?
Yeah, I believe so. But you also know me, and I change my mind every second. So.
Yeah. Once he sees those new pairs of pink, bright, shiny shoes on the shelf, he's got to have them.
Shiny, must have.
So, Marty, what about you? Have you figured out your main, or are you still kind of on the fence?
Yeah, I'm going Mistweaver.
Okay.
Oh yeah, he sounded like he just absolutely loved them. See, there's people out there right now like, oh man, I had Beast Mastery Hunter and Mistweaver Monk down.
I think I know what I want to go with. And yeah.
Okay.
I won't say any more than that.
That's fair enough.
Stands there and heals, right?
Well, then that makes we're 3 for 3 on that one. Oh, damn it. That's funny. You don't understand though. Like Oreo has somewhat of an understanding because he's been present since. But even before Oreo was brought into the TRC project, how many times Marty and I would talk raiding and Mythic, and Marty would be like, "Yeah, I'm sitting out tonight. I'm the holy priest. I can't move and heal."
Yeah, and it's not going away. They still haven't fixed it. It's like, yeah,
Which is so shitty because I think of all the healers, the mechanics of a holy priest, their ebb and flow with their power words or whatever it is I don't know. I just really enjoy those mechanics.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
And then we get to our AoE, which no, not AoE. Then we get to our cooldown, and then we just have to stand there, and then we get targeted, and then we have to move, and then we just wasted the cooldown. And I'm like, don't get me started.
Yeah. Makes you want to bring Aspect of the Fox back, huh? Oh yeah, fun. So, but anyways, yes, that makes 3 for 3. I too know what main I will be using going forward. But the one last question I wanted to ask you guys in regards to this particular project. Now, knowing that you know what your main is, will people be surprised when they hear what your main is? Again, we'll start with Oreo.
Knowing that I have rolled, I guess you could call them flavor of the month classes lately, I think people will be surprised.
All right. What about you, Marty? You think people will be surprised?
I think so, because when I tell people that I'm going Mistweaver next week, then people are like, "Well, that's not what it said." No, I actually think people will, because my guild already knows what I'm choosing, and they were even like, "Are you sure?
Are you feeling okay?"
Yeah.
Quick, what's the number for 911?
In 112, it's Denmark.
We'll see how many people get that movie reference. I think people are going to be surprised for me too, other than the people that know me, that know what's going on in the guild, stuff like that. But I think people will be surprised too. But I won't say any more than that. So wrapping things up again, guys, I want to say thank you for all you guys listening. This has been a really fun project. Oreo, thank you for coming on to TRC. I know Marty was already present before we started this project. And I am literally enthusiastic about what we have going forward. I think we have a platform for some really good stuff moving forward into BFA. I did also want to take a moment to announce that we have found a date and scheduled a date with the Ask Mr. Robot people. We will do a pre-launch interview with them to kind of tease and to kind of maybe introduce a little bit what they have going on. But they have a few relatively big projects that are coming to us in BFA that they want to wait and announce those. And so we will actually bring them back onto the show after they've launched them in BFA and rehash that stuff. So for those of you that might be interested to talk about some of the tools and resources that Ask Mr. Robot has and will have in BFA, I would definitely invite you guys to come join us. That I do believe the date is August 5th. I would have to go look again, but it will be whatever weekend is right around the August 5th date. I don't know if I've hit it right on the mark or not. We are talking to the Radar.io guys to come on for another interview. They've been on in the past to kind of talk about the stuff that they have coming in BFA. So that'll be another episode that you can look forward to, hopefully pre-launch, but if not, sometime around launch date once they kind of calm down and have some time available. And then we also, like I said, next week we will have the reveal party where we tell you guys what our mains are. We'll talk about how we came to those decisions, what our influences are, and stuff like that. And then we'll also have some other various topics as well. So before we get out of here, do you guys have anything you wanted to add before I hit these two buttons?
No, it's been fun.
Cool.
It's been a slice.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys again. And again, Sundays, today is a little bit different because Marty and I have another project we have to get to after this. But you can, usually speaking, we will always be Sundays 2:30 Central Standard Time live on Twitch for the shows. And want to thank you guys again. So with that being said, I'm hit these buttons and we will get out of here. Talk to you next week, guys. See ya. You guys want to find Marty, you can find him over at the Blizzard podcast he does, where they talk all things Blizzard games, the Blue Recluse. If you want to find him on Twitter, you can find him at Unamathil. For me, guys, if you want to find me and personally, you can find me over on my Twitch and Twitter, which are both at Mega Irish Gaming, or you can find me on my All Things Blizzard podcast, which I do with my good friend Dusty Porter, the Blizzard Umbrella. If you want to find us here on the show, you can find us at our Twitter account, which is at _TRC podcast, or you can find us on our email, theraidersconfessional@gmail.com, no apostrophe on the S. That being said, guys, Dusty, take us out of here, my man. See ya.
Sorry, I died. Was I supposed to stand in the green puddles or the orange ones?
Hey, get together over there, bud.
This show has been hosted by Dragon Powered Studios, and the intro and outro has been brought to you by Thankful Cow Solutions.
Moo.